Okay, I want to welcome the Planning Commission meeting, and we'll open this meeting, August 6th Planning Commission meeting with our public hearings. The first item on the agenda in regards to public hearings is the Stillwater Estates preliminary plat SUB 19-04. Requesting review and approval of preliminary plat to create a residential subdivision of 41 lots named Stillwater Estates in the residential single-family small lot RSS district. So we want to open the public hearing on this item, and anyone wishing to speak on this item. Oh, I'm sorry, Lance, I'm jumping up. We need staff presentation.
Good evening, Lance Gross with Development Services. The preliminary plat before you tonight is Silverton Estates, located at 1600 East 6th Avenue. The hatched mark on the map indicates the location of the proposed plat. And, 12th Avenue is to the north, and Ransom is to the west, and Jardot is to the east. This is looking at the site at the end of Payne, and it's basically looking to the northwest. And this is on, actually over on Ransom, looking to the east. The gravel drive is the location of the secondary access. This is the preliminary plat. And you guys have actually already seen this, I guess, before, but and the findings are is that it meets the requirements for the RSS zoning district, the lot size, setbacks, and all that stuff. And the C3 plan recommends low density for residential uses for this area. And this originally came before you on June the 4th, and then was deferred to the 16th, and now it's back here. Any questions?
Go ahead, Brad.
It remarked at one point that it talks about there are two access points, but then I think I was reading in the minutes of the previous meetings, it intimated that at least one of those streets is blocked with some sort of a gate or something for the fire to get through, but not traffic access or things like that. I wanted just to get some clarity on that.
We can probably check with the applicant just to be sure, but it's my understanding that secondary access will be open.
Okay.
Is that correct? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. It'll have a fire access on it.
But not open.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
No.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, now we'd like to open it for the public hearing, and we'd like anyone wishing to speak in favor of this item, please approach the podium.
Good evening, Kelly Harris with Keystone Engineering, located at 923 South Lowry, here representing the owner tonight. Just to answer your question real quick. So on the plat, there is a panhandle shaped towards the southwest area here. That is approximately 30 feet wide. So it's not wide enough for a street, but it is wide enough to satisfy emergency vehicle access. Right now it services two existing houses here on a gravel drive. So as part of the plat, we are dedicating that as an access easement / utility easement. So it will remain a gravel drive up until about this location, and then it switches to asphalt like the rest of the subdivision. And then there will be, I feel like I'm getting loud and soft quite a bit. Sorry about that. There will be a gate, emergency access gate, that the emergency vehicles have that code in order to use it. So the main vehicle access for the residents will be out Payne Street in that southeast corner. Okay?
Are you proposing any improvements for Payne Street?
Well, you're jumping ahead in my presentation.
I apologize.
So that was one of the major concerns from residents we did have a neighborhood meeting since the last Planning Commission meeting as well. And we have gotten construction estimates for reconstructing Payne Street to the city minimum street, keeping it asphalt. We are in discussions with city staff about participating in that cost. Since it's not technically required by code that we improve Payne Street, we are asking that the city participate in that, and we haven't gotten any answers, yes or no, on that yet. So that's where we're at on that process.
What about the width of Payne Street?
So on average, it's 16 foot wide currently. And so we would be widening 2 foot on either side. That's what we're proposing. And that is the city's standard local street width for asphalt open section roads, would be 20 foot total.
Okay.
I have to fast forward in my presentation. It seems like we've covered a lot here. So we do have the stormwater detention facilities. We're doing we're proposing all the water and sewer improvements, the roads. Also, during the neighborhood meeting, a lot of the discussion was around the FEMA floodplain, and we were able to explain that more in depth, I believe. The FEMA floodplain does come into this southern area. This is the low portion where everything drains out of existing, and that's where it would drain in the proposed conditions as well. Again, some of the benefits is we're bringing in water lines. There's a current dead-end water line at Payne Street. We will be looping that inside our subdivision and connecting to Ransom. So the people located along Payne Street will experience higher, better water pressure than they're seeing now. Sanitary sewer will be brought into the neighborhood and run along the street system. So anybody abutting the streets would have access to sanitary sewer. I believe quite a few people are on septic systems out in this area. And then, of course, the roads are a big one coming in. There are quite a few large properties that front the roads as well. So those people all have development potential now. If they're not interested in developing their land, they also have access to portions of their land that was previously inaccessible due to floodplain. The properties on this western area, their properties along the west half of them are all in the FEMA floodplain. However, as you get closer to our neighborhood, those are actual buildable areas now. They're above that 100-year floodplain. So benefits to the neighbors. We have discussed with several neighbors the potential of leaving off some of the curb as we build the street so that they can put in a driveway already. They're interested in that. Another topic was the grass strip between our road and property line, who is going to maintain that. There will be a homeowners association set up for this development. We'll have to have one to maintain the detention facility and the gravel access drive down there in that south corner. So that same group will mow any sections that don't front one of these interior properties. So along those streets, they'll have a mowing company come in and mow. That was pretty much the overview and catch up from neighborhood meetings and what's been going on since the last Planning Commission. Any questions?
I have a couple.
Sure.
So the primary input you got from the meeting with the neighborhood was the FEMA floodplain?
Drainage through that and the FEMA floodplain, understanding that there's not a lot we can do about that. There's a small portion located on our property. Most of that is located to the west and south of us. So we're not going to be able to improve or change that floodplain any.
What about the drainage down Payne?
So we did run calculations. So the flow that they're seeing down Payne now will be less than, well, in post conditions, it will be less than what they're seeing now due to the street directing it to the west, that flow, running along the curb and gutter.
Directing it to the west.
Yes. So any runoff that comes in from this, well, northeast area will be captured and it'll flow down that North Street. And then the water flowing along the west side, oh, here we go, flowing along the west side of this north-south street will turn and go down to the west.
Where is the detention facility going to be located? Could you summarize that for us again?
Sure. So the detention facility is located in this northwest corner. It's capturing all the runoff coming down from the properties on 12th, from between 12th and this property. So we're capturing that flow and releasing it down the street at a rate that's less than what you're seeing existing. And then it reaches this lower cul-de-sac area, which does not have a curb, and it's allowed to, after it passes into this cul-de-sac area, it's allowed to widen out and spread out and be under the velocity that the city requires, the water leaving the property.
Now, there's a pre-existing pond in the northwest part of the area.
There is.
I'm asking.
Yes, there is.
Okay. So is that going to be used for the detention? Will it be enlarged?
No, it's mostly located off of our property. The dam is located on our property. So we will be relocating that to the property line. And we have added drainage easements along the north side of the subdivision to account for that.
No, I'm not a hydrologist, but just visually, it looks like the land slopes from the northeast to the southwest in that area.
Correct.
Why was not the detention facility located in the southwest quadrant?
So the detention facility is not allowed to be located within the 100-year floodplain. It has to be above that. And so this is upstream from that area.
So with that kind of water flow in the land, how will the northwest detention facility capture all that flow? You're thinking the streets will capture the other flow and direct it off the development and then the other existing homes in the area?
Yes, so we're able to model the amount of flow that's coming into the site that we expect the detention facility to see, and we can put a volume to that. And so we know how much water that the subdivision will create, and so as long as those balance out or we're detaining more than what the subdivision is releasing, then we're ultimately decreasing the amount of runoff that south corner is seeing.
So they're not detaining any water from, or minimum water from their site. They're detaining water that's coming onto their site. Right when it comes on the site, they're detaining it. So before it had a certain peak discharge with both of those. And with this, we're lowering the one that's coming to them. By this subdivision, they're raising the one that's going on them, but the net effect is a lowering of the peak discharge. So going off the site, they'll have less peak discharge than there is today.
Even with the additional runoff generated by the pavement
Yes.
rooftops?
The peak discharge will reduce. The volume would increase because less is being absorbed. So So the amount of water running off will increase, but the peak discharge will decrease.
That flow rate leaving will decrease.
Okay, I hear what you're saying.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
It looks like when you were pointing down to the south, you said it will come down the streets and come down to that southwest corner, which is where the emergency access is.
Yes.
And along that emergency access, there are a couple of homes, correct?
Mm-hmm.
If all of that is channeled down that street and to that access point, will that cause more problem for the homes that are there?
So again, we modeled that as well. It is not expected, and I don't know, this is an old preliminary plat that's on here. We had submitted a new one. There's a portion of paving that we've added. Some of that access is paved, and that's the area where we expect to see the water flowing down that street spread out. So it's going to be minimum, and their driveway is west of that area. So that flow shouldn't affect them.
So it's not going to force more water down to the gravel, continually washing out the gravel?
No, and that's another reason why we asphalted it as well, because we do expect that flow coming across that drive, and I didn't want that gravel washing downstream, washing off. So we went ahead and
if that gravel does wash off, is that part of the homeowners association?
Yes, it is. But so we have that, and it's a good stretch. I would say probably 80 to 100 foot of asphalt before it leaves the property.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you.
I would like to request the ability to come back up before you close the public hearing to address any questions that may come up.
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll open it up for anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this item. Please step forward and state your name and address.
My name is Ray Bernard. I live at 1602 South Payne. I'm glad to hear they're taking into consideration improvement of Payne. I do have concerns about the drainage. I understand the pink flow and the volume and all that. But in our neighborhood meeting, I asked Kelly how they treated that pond as far as right now it serves as a natural detention pond because the dam doesn't hold water, it seeps. So after the recent flooding, by early July, it was already dry. It had done its job, and it's approximately a 35-foot radius. So assuming a 5-foot depth, there's about 15,000 cubic feet of storage there that holds in any given rain. In fact, with the recent 3.5 inches of rain, it held it all. None of it, it's not full, but it held the water. So she said we treated it like it was full all the time. It's never full. I dare say it wasn't full during any of the time they were out there doing their engineering. So to fill that, you're taking away some storage. So if you're going to build another one, it needs to compensate for it because it works quite well now. It slows it down, and it hasn't gone over the spillway until this last batch of flooding in years. Also, slowing the velocity is going to be a lot faster coming off these streets and roofs and drives than is being absorbed right now. And it's all going to come right down there in the corner of my property where it goes through during that draw. So, full of dirt and full of water, the same thing. So essentially her comment meant we treated that pond like it didn't exist when we did these calculations.
We can have Kelly come up again, but in my perspective, that is the best for you. In other words, she's assumed there's no storage there, so she has to offset with no storage in that pond. If she assumes some storage in there, she could reduce her storage. So to me, if in the future when it has storage, that improves your situation. So that's the exact thing that you want her to do, is to assume it's full of water. that there's no available storage there.
Well, actually, I'd like this detention to be right down in the corner. Now, she said it can't be in the floodplain, that's true, but it's not very many feet to be out of that. Her first plat that Candy came and showed me showed 39 lots in there instead of 41, and the detention pond was down there in the southwest corner instead of the northwest corner. So they were at that time going to catch their water and slow it down instead of saying, okay, we're going to catch the stuff up the hill that's coming on us and then we can let ours go faster. So, I mean, I've lived there a long time and I know how much storage that pond has and its value. The other comment I have is the density. I understand the zoning issue, but we're all out there on acreages, and this just doesn't fit the neighborhood. Those comments were voiced by a couple of the commissioners at the outset of the preliminary meeting, the first meeting before it being tabled. So I'm not opposed to her developing her property, but I'd sure like to see a lot less density. I think it'd also be beneficial when she was talking about the gravel access and pointed out that it's 30 feet wide and that's not wide enough for a city street, yet she is proposing to improve Payne and take it to 20 feet. 20 feet of asphalt would work down there just as well, and you'd have a better street that wouldn't be subject to homeowner maintenance, because sometimes homeowner associations, there's a problem getting maintenance done by them. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this item?
Good evening. My name is James Bradley. I live at 1611 South Payne Street. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be a part of the Planning Commission. I think it's a function that's very well served to the city of Stillwater. Tonight, one of the things I would like to state is that this development along Payne Street is not an issue of not in my backyard. I think developing this piece of property is going to be a fine addition to the city of Stillwater in whatever the final development looks like. Again, the concerns that I have today are the same concerns that I had at the last meeting. Is they're going to develop 41 houses with increased traffic with no improvement to the infrastructure leading into this this new development site. Payne Street is going to continue to deteriorate. 17th Street is going to continue to deteriorate. The the sewer line that's being proposed from the development down to Ransom Street is not going to be available to the people below grade without having to put in significant infrastructure with pumps and things like that. So that's not a benefit. Currently, we have adequate water supply that leads up with the city water, so the benefit of having the loop line, while there is a benefit to the city of Stillwater in quality water issues, is probably not going to be anything that's going to be transparent to me. So as you look forward to this, making your decision on this, I would urge the Planning Commission to make sure certain control mechanisms are in place that protects the integrity of the neighborhood now, the infrastructure, and that the cost for repairing that infrastructure is not borne by the people that currently live there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak against this item?
Roger Ghost, 113 East 8th, with Ghost and Associates on behalf of Three Pokes Investments LLC, which owns a tract of the property right here to the north. You all don't have it anyway. It's just to the west of the pond. I think it's great that, and I think my owners, like seeing some infrastructure, infill. Let's get some infill in here. It was stated that the sewer and water were being extended so that they would benefit the adjacent properties. None of these properties abutting this to the north have access to the sewer. And this sewer and the whole area over there flows southwest. So I'd ask that you require some kind of provisions, either move that sewer line that's in street, whatever that street that east-west street is, move it to the north, or get some easements through there so the sewer can be extended. Oh, thank you. Okay.
One that abuts the northern property.
There's a sewer line here. All of this property would be cut off from getting to the sewer that's right over here. Unless we get some extensions off of this sewer up through here. Water line, these properties have water on front on 12th Avenue. Any development along there is basically going to have a dead-end line running down into those subdivisions, or any development, I don't know what there is, any development within this area, and instead of some ties through there. City Code Section 23-357 and 23-358 both require that those utilities be extended to adjacent properties or arrangements made for that extension. It's also a question on the DEQ engineering application. Can property beyond this be served? Any questions?
So sanitary sewer, in your opinion, needs to be an easement through this area or extended to this area?
Accommodated. The code says it would be extended. Whether that's fair, that you guys can make that decision. If there's an easement
You
and
understood my question and responded properly.
okay.
The water line, does extensions need to be done here for the water?
Well, I think we'd have a better water system at some point if somewhere along this line there was provisions made that water could be taken up to 12th Avenue.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
No. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak against this item? Okay, seeing none. Kelly, do you wish to approach the podium?
So for the water and utility connection, yeah, we would be happy to add a utility easement through this area right here to accommodate that. And that is towards the low end, or even along the property line. We can take a look at that and getting a utility easement to the north property line. That utilities could be extended if needed in the future.
Any other questions?
I think that was the only question or comment to clear up.
Okay.
Any other questions for me? Earlier, when Mr. Bradley spoke, I believe he talked about the width of the street, the gravel street, versus the width of Payne.
Yes, so 30 feet, a 30-foot wide right-of-way is not wide enough to accommodate utilities and a paved street. Typically, the minimum right-of-way is 50-foot wide for a paved street, and that's in order to get the utilities far enough away from paving, things that would have to be torn up in order to replace those. Since this is a gravel area, we're being allowed some allowances. It's not paving, and it's so in order to get all the utilities and a street in there, 30 feet is not wide enough.
Anything else for Kelly? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no more comments, we'd like to close the public hearing and ask for staff alternatives.
Let's see, the alternatives are you can recommend approval, or you can table it to a certain date. Any questions?
So there's not an alternative to
To make,
have an approval with adjustments. For example, in my opinion, the ordinances here are real clear in that we need to have some way of connecting this subdivision or future subdivision to the north. And therefore, since the easements are not marked on this thing, if those are my two options, then I want to delay things because I want to see that on this option.
we can look into adding those easements. I mean, that seems like a relatively minor thing that can be adjusted. I know easements can always be added at a later date as well.
My question was, there was some discussion with regard to the improvement on Payne Street, that they were talking to the city about discussing on that topic, but it sounded like it hadn't been determined what, if anything, the city may or may not do. I mean, that was something that I think would be, it's helpful for me. In the past, I've been very strong against private streets and private roads because I think it leaves a liability. We've talked about this in previous years, Mike, as you might remember. Do you know do we have anything to go from on that, or is it just something that will be discussed in the future, or is this, where are we, if anything, on that? If I can ask that question.
Yeah, that's something that'll be decided in the future. Yeah. It's kind of one of the things that the applicant will have to make that determination.
This is a preliminary plat. Because this is a preliminary plat, the final plat will have to come through. The minutes of these meetings will go forward to the city council and be in here. So the minutes of the meetings clearly need to show in my mind that this commission clearly wants to see on the final plat easements that tie utilities to the north. And we want to clearly see the street to be improved to the south. With that, I'll make a motion. The proposed preliminary plat meets all subdivision and zoning requirements.
Second.
Well, there's been a motion and a second. All in favor?
So my motion, to clarify my motion, is to accept the findings
Okay,
and approve the preliminary plat as presented.
I'd like to take further discussion to see if there is any additional discussion on this item.
I have no problem with that. I withdraw my motion.
Oh, you leave the motion, leave the second.
Yeah.
And just open up for discussion amongst you guys.
I'll be happy to do that too.
Would anyone like to make any further comments that haven't been made already? Okay. I will. This is, I think, the development in terms of its scope and scale is not commensurate with the neighborhood. I know, I'm very aware that the land use plan, the zoning map shows RSS, which would allow for this. But I know that there was a note or comment made in the agenda items that are given to us that in the C3 plan, this area is shown as low density. I don't really construe 41 lots in this area to be low density. I think that the city certainly needs additional housing. We know that, especially affordable housing. But I certainly don't think a 41 lot development in this neighborhood, again, is appropriate given its past development and its current configuration. I think it would be, we'd be better served to see a smaller development put in here. I don't know if that would require, and this is something beyond me, if that would require a rezoning change to be able to allow for that, or that a change in the number of lots would be acceptable within the current zoning. But again, I'm not really thinking that this size of the development is what is needed in this area.
So, Mr. Attorney,
If there's no further comments, you can call for the question and take a vote.
I would like to ask you a question.
Okay.
Put you on the spot. So the zoning allows this size lots in development. If we don't believe it fits the character of the neighborhood, is that a criteria we could reject this zoning, and is that legally sufficient?
If that's your individual conclusion, you make a recommendation to the council, and you can certainly put it forward that way, that you don't recommend the development as proposed. And it's up to them whether they want to do anything further than that. But you have the right to vote your conscience.
Okay.
And they may have development by right, so council won't have too many options going forward, but at least you make your recommendation as you see fit.
I'm ready to vote if the chair wants to move forward.
Any other comment?
I tend to, Mr. Shanahan, I kind of agree with what he has to say, and we have not brought that up in any of our conversations so far. Can we put that back out there for further discussion on input on that, basically the size of what they're trying to do, trying to scale that down? That hasn't been discussed at all by anyone.
Right now, the status is you have a motion and a second. The discussion is amongst the board, and that's where it stays unless you want to.
So what would you like to do? When you say you want some more discussion, you want planning commission discussion, or do you want some discussion from people out in the audience, or you want to defer
From people
this?
in the audience. And maybe I'm going the wrong direction with this, but it's just we haven't discussed a smaller scope here until Mike brought this up.
That hasn't been brought forward as a
Right.
potential alternative
Right.
to the commission. So would
So I can withdraw my motion, withdraw the second. We can vote to open the public hearing. Is that correct, Mr. Attorney? So if I withdraw my motion, withdraw the second, we could vote to open the public hearing again and ask for comments of the public about the character of this neighborhood. Is that a correct statement?
If you withdraw the second first, then withdraw the motion, then make a motion. If you want further discussion, open it back up.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
If I may. The development code does allow, under section 2363, that a preliminary plat can be conditionally approved. Under preliminary plats, part 2, section D, it states that on conditionally approving a plat, the Planning Commission shall require submission of a revised preliminary plat prior to Planning Commission review of any final plats. It also says that in section B that if a preliminary plat is disapproved or approved conditionally, the reasons for such action shall be stated as part of the minutes, and that it be stated in writing. You also have to refer to what specific part of the comprehensive plan or city regulations that are causing you to ask for a conditional approval. So that is an option at your disposal if you feel that's necessary. We just wanted to make sure you knew that.
Thank you. Okay. So,
Who's second?
second, do we want to?
Yeah. I mean, our alternatives are accept the findings, or not accept the findings, or postpone it. So, what, or table?
You do conditional approval, send it to the council, conditional approval.
So we would have to remove this motion and second to consider an,
Yes, if you're going to change
Okay.
anything at all, then back everything up.
all right. Then I will withdraw my second.
I'll withdraw my motion.
So then we would move to approve the plat conditionally.
Well, it depends on what you want to do. If you need further comment, you can open the floor back up. If you don't need any further comment, then
Do you need any more comment?
I don't need any more comment, but a commissioner asked
I
if,
think my question was, can the general public make further comments now at this point?
at this point, no. Not without further action by the
Okay.
public hearing's been closed. So
Right.
as we go next.
But the public would be allowed to participate in a public hearing on the plat when it's presented before the city council?
Yes.
Okay.
I might interject something. The preliminary plat will not go to city council, that's standard procedure, but the final plat will go to planning commission and also city council.
That doesn't give us a lot of alternatives right at this moment, because if we approve this conditionally as a then it goes as a conditional improvement, and then the final plat comes before us?
No.
No.
Final plat goes back to the city council.
And then our comments would be included in their consideration of the matter.
Yes.
And then there would be a further public hearing.
Actually, forgive me for interrupting, the final plat does go to planning commission and then city council, so it does go to
We would
both.
Go through this process again, considering the
Correct,
final plat.
yeah.
Well, Commission, what do you think? Trying to understand a procedural way where we could request or consider alternatives to the current configuration with a number of lots. Is that my understanding? I mean, that's my direction, but I'm not sure that I understand how we could do that.
there's two separate issues in my mind. Issue number one is the utility and the roadway improvements.
Correct.
And to me, we've made that clear on the public record to do that. So if that was the only issue, I have no problem approving the plat tonight. But the other issue is lot size, I will call it. Less density. And that is a whole separate issue. And do we need more information? I mean, I've already resolved in my mind that I am not against this and will vote for it with this lot size. So I may not be the proper person to talk about this, but if the majority of the commission wants to go that direction, do they need more information? Or do we need more discussion in front of the four of us? Or
I'm not sure.
I'm with Mike. So, I mean, just,
I'm not in favor of the plat in its current form. So we can proceed with a vote and see where that takes it.
do you need more information?
No, I think, I'm just on the fence with it, but.
Well, if you're on the fence, I want to make you get off the fence.
I don't know whether.
And I will move to accept findings and approve the proposed preliminary plat as presented.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion that's been seconded to approve the staff recommendation to approve the preliminary plat with easement consideration.
I did not include
You did
that.
not include it?
Because it's on public record and they will do that and they will know that I will vote against the final plat if they don't do it. So I don't need that myself.
Okay. So a motion was made, seconded, so let's vote on the issue. Okay, it's 3-1 in favor of the motion. Okay, the next item of business is SC Retail Management Map Amendment, map 19-02, and I believe staff, would you speak for that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we can. Brian Harkins, Development Services. This is a rezoning request that we discovered, as we noted in the memorandum to you as part of the packet, that map amendment was scheduled for tonight's meeting due to an error with the public notification, particularly the signage. That item is being re-advertised for the August 20th, 2019 Planning Commission meeting and a City Council hearing date of September 5th, 2019. The public notices were sent out correctly to property owners within 300 feet. It was duly noticed in the newspaper of record. The signage, however, did not match what was advertised and put in the property owner letter, so staff is re-advertising that.
Move this out August 20th. Second.
There's been a motion, it's been seconded to move to August 20th.
Do we need action?
You lost me on where you're at.
They have a request to move it to August 20th. Do we need to do a vote?
No.
No, Dennis, the public notice was wrong. They don't need to take action.
Yeah.
Okay. I know
No,
what you
no,
meant.
this
Yes.
is more of an informational briefing.
Thank
on
you
the
for the
matter.
information.
You're welcome.
Okay, now we move to item 3, which is approval of meeting summaries. The summary for the meeting of June 4th, 2019. Do I hear a motion to
I think we can do them all together, sir.
bundle them
Unless there's
together?
comments.
Okay.
Unless there's comments on any of them.
Well, so we'll consider the June 4th, July 9th, and July 16th meetings. Do we have
I
a
move-
motion to accept those?
Yeah, I move that we accept the meeting summaries of the meetings of June 4th, July 9th, and July 16th.
A second.
Okay. Let's vote.
It was just a second.
All right. Item 4, miscellaneous items from staff and planning commissioners. Any announcements or?
Can you please revote on the minutes, please?
Oh, okay. We'll rewind here.
Yes, please.
Okay. It's been accepted minutes have been accepted 4-0.
All 3 sets of minutes.
Yes.
Good to go. Okay.
Okay. All right. Now we'll proceed to item number 4, the miscellaneous items from staff and planning commissioners. Are there any that want to be discussed? Seeing none. The next planning commission meeting will be August 20th. And do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I move adjourn.
Second.
All right, motion is made, seconded. Okay, the Meeting's adjourned.